the good news feels incredibly good, and like the bad news or lack of news feels so bad, and you're just kind of
Mm.
like going up and down all the time. And it is just really good to have people like to kind of pull yourself out of it. I think with social
Yeah.
media as well, like you're always just kind of like there's an endless number of things you can check and an endless number of ways to kind of feel bad if you're like really want to feel bad about something.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Conversation with your host, Nadine Matheson. As always, I hope that you're well and I hope that you're enjoying your week. I'm very well. I've just returned from Bradford Literature Festival, where I was appearing on the Global Crime Queens panel with Simon Mayer and Kia Abdullah, and it was chaired by John Sadiq from Writers Mosaic, and I had such a great time. It was so good. I mean, the Bradford Literature Festival was just amazing in itself, just meeting so many different artists and poets and authors, but then also just hanging out with my fellow crime writers and just talking about our books and what else did we talk about? Our writing processes and why we chose crime, why we continue to write crime books. And it was just great fun. So that was the weekend. And last week, I was formally, I'm saying indoctrinated is completely the wrong word. I don't even know what word I'm trying to use, but I formally became the chair of the Crime Writers Association. So I'm the new chair of the Crime Writers Association for 2 years, and I'm looking forward to it. And the weird thing is, it was only the day after, was it the day after? Yeah, the day after I became chair of the CWA. It was only the following day that I realised that I was the first Black woman chair of the CWA. And that in itself, I think, is a great achievement. And it's also a sign of what's to come. So it's just like my little call out for crime writers everywhere. Doesn't matter if you're published, self-published, looking to get published, come and join the CWA. Come and join us. We're going to look after you. And you're going to be part of an amazing community. Anyway, let's get on with the show because today I'm in conversation with Krystelle Bamford. Krystelle Bamford's debut novel is called Idle Ground and it's out now. And in our conversation, Krystelle and I talk about the emotional roller coaster of being in an auction, the journey from poet to novelist, and why competing with yourself is the key to happiness. Now, as always, sit back or go for a walk and enjoy the conversation. Krystelle Bamford, welcome to The Conversation.
Hi, Nadine.
Right, my first question for you is, and it is, I know I was just saying to you before we started recording, it won't be, tell me about your inspiration, but I do want to know, how would you describe your writing journey?
Oh, that's a really good question. So, and it's one I should have like a better answer to be honest. So I only ever wrote poetry for like years and years. That's it. And like, I did not understand people who could do more than one thing. And it just never occurred to me to try to write fiction. Like I did a little bit when I was like at school and stuff. But you know, like you have these poets who are like playwrights, or they write librettos, or they do film or whatever. And I was just like, I was like, how can anyone kind of focus on more than one thing, or even like aspire to be okay at more than one thing? And then
Yeah.
I think I just, yeah. So basically, I'd written poetry for a really long time. I had some successes, but it just felt like I don't know. I felt like I had sort of run up against a wall. And so I decided to try my hand at writing fiction, honestly, just for fun, like really with no intention of ever showing it to anyone. And that's kind of when I wrote Idle Grounds. But after writing lots of short stories that will never, see the light of day and stuff. But yeah, so that was pretty much it.
Did anything like in your, I say your poetry career, did it prepare you for publishing?
Yeah, well, it prepares you for rejection, definitely. I think, I think, yeah, I think it did in a way. I mean, it's really different because for me, because like poetry was just kind of constant stream of rejection. I mean, you get the occasional win, but it's just like their numbers are so high. Like they just get like hundreds or thousands of poems per week. And so like your hit rate is so super low. So you just kind of get this tidal wave. So that was good in terms of kind of like toughening you up, I guess. But in terms of like the actual kind of progression of it felt really different. Like poetry was something I was doing completely by myself. And then with the fiction side of it, like I was doing it by myself at the beginning, but I my book got picked up, I guess, relatively quickly. So
Yeah.
like in terms of actually like the editing process and all that stuff that in poetry you almost always had to do by yourself, I had like people with me doing it, and that was nice. Like it felt like more of a team thing than poetry, which just like completely like you and your computer and that's it. So yeah, so that was kind of a nice difference.
You know what's I say what's weird, and maybe it's just a little bit of serendipity. But yesterday, or last couple of days, I was clearing out under my stairs, and I found a box which I forgot that was there, and it had basically like it was a folder of my schoolwork when I was 15, and it was my English folder. And then I found the poems. We must have had a poetry assignment, and mine was so bad. And I was, and so
I think that's everybody though.
I was
Oh, that
thinking
won't
like,
just be you.
but I was thinking, how do you know if you're when you're good or if you're good at poetry, and it's not just
Oh,
teenage angst on the
just kind of
page?
wank. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good question. I don't know is the honest answer. Like I think maybe if you have a feel for it, like, because everyone writes terrible poetry when they're a teenager. I think, like,
Oh
no
God,
matter who
yeah.
you are, it's like that's just like part of the growing process. It's fine. I wrote, I mean, yeah, awful poetry, like really rhymey, like very navel gazing. Um, I think that not maybe when I first knew that I was good at it, but when I first knew I really liked it was when I started university, and it just kind of made sense to me. I think I liked how small it was in a way that you could just kind of hold it
Mm,
in the palm of your hand. And I really liked the sort of sounds, like aspect of it, like the kind of textural aspect. So I think I could feel my brain start to kind of whir when I was reading it. And then I think that was maybe how I realized that maybe I would be okay at writing it. I just felt like I had a kind of a feel for it.
yeah.
Um yeah, so I think that was it. And I had a really good teacher my freshman year, or maybe my sophomore year of NYU, and he was like just really encouraging, really lovely. Because like creative writing at NYU is like a total blood sport. Like
Is it
students were
really?
really, oh, it was. I don't think it's like that anymore, but it was total at the time. Yes. And this class that I took was just like an entry level one. Anyone could get into it. I had no intention of like pursuing it past that point. But he was really great. And he was like, no, you should apply for like the kind of more higher level classes and da da da. And I was like, okay. And it was just he fostered like such a nice atmosphere. And I think he was like really the reason why I decided to sort of pursue it. And it's really funny because my launch, he lives in the States. He's a poet named Kazimili. And I put him in my acknowledgments of my novel, and somehow it kind of went, he must have seen it in a bookshop or whatever, and he got in touch, and he's in Edinburgh, Scotland, where I live, during the launch. So he happens to be here for like a
Oh
kind of a
wow.
reading tour. So I've not seen him in like 20 years or whatever, 25 years. And it's going to be the first time I've seen him in like a quarter century. And he'll be coming to my launch, which is so exciting.
That is fun. That is so amazing. It really
Yeah,
is.
it's really lucky. Yeah.
Do you know what I want to just go back on? Only because I just find it interesting. Knowing you described the creative writing course as being a blood sport. What what made it such a blood sport? Like, what were they? I don't know. What am I asking? Like, what were the students hoping to get? What made them so competitive?
I think it was fostered by the teachers, to be honest. Like it was a really weird. I think that a lot of the creative writing tutors, not all of them, some of them were wonderful, but they were just like, look, it's a tough business and most of you won't make it. And you're going to have to get used to rejection. So we're just going to start now. And they would just kind of pit people against each other. Or they would be like, oh, you look like I remember one professor looking at this poor girl, and he's like, oh, you look like you'd be really talented, but you're not. And like things like that.
No.
And it was just absolutely jaw dropping stuff. Yeah. And it was like, and I don't know. I don't know, but it was pretty grim. I mean, like I really enjoyed aspects of it. But it was really good because that first class was like warm and fuzzy and lovely. And actually, to be honest, I probably took the most out of that first class because it was just like really nurturing and everyone was like really supportive. And I think that's probably how it is now. I think it was just a weird time and maybe there was like less student support and stuff back then. But yeah, it was just like everyone would just be like ashen faced, like just sort of like knees knocking together, bringing in their like piece. But I think people feel like anyway, but yeah.
It's crazy because on one hand, you could be saying, you know what, I'm just going to be realistic with you. There's no point giving you this rose tinted view of publishing. I'm just going to tell you exactly how it is so you're prepared. And there's nothing wrong with that. But then the other side of just like, well, you're not going to make it. Like, I don't even know why you're here. That's
I
that's cruel.
know. It's really cruel. And like everyone was so young. Like everyone was like 18, 19 years old. Like there's no
Yeah.
way anyone would have any there's so many people who are like you were saying, everyone writes bad poetry that age. And it's just a question of like learning to love it. And also it's like no one learns well when they're scared. It's like your brain shuts down. It's really hard to be creative when you're terrified. And like yeah, I still don't understand that. I mean, I guess it was good in a way. It's like it does toughen you up. But if you decided to kind of keep going with it, it meant you were like quite serious about it, I guess. But like I think it probably turned a lot of people off who were probably really talented and that yeah, it's a kind of a shame.
It kind of like you kind of forget how young you actually are at 18, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, especially when, you're starting university, those 3 or 4 years at uni from 18 to, what was it, 21, 22. You are so young and you're not just learning about life, you're still learning about yourself.
Oh, yeah, totally. Like, I mean, it's funny because I think the American like liberal arts system is different than the way uni is structured in the UK, I
Mm,
think. So like in America, like you go in having no clue what you want to study, right? So you just kind of walk in. Like I have a friend who had to declare her major 2 years in, and it was between fine arts and anthropology. And she decided to go for anthropology, but she walked into like the janitor's closet on her way there by accident. Like she opened and she decided it was a bad sign. So she decided to like study fine arts instead. So it was like just on a hair. It was like so kind of random what you decided to go in for. And so everyone was just sort of like feeling their oats and like figuring out what they wanted to do. So to kind of be so discouraging of people at such an early stage. And yeah, you just are really young. Yeah, it seems crazy.
hold on. So when you go to when you go to college in the States, you don't go to study a subject like here in the UK. So when I went, I
No.
studied. No, you don't.
No, it's so weird. So it's like, I mean, maybe it's changed. No, I'm sure it's still like that. So you just get accepted to like the university or the college. And like, I mean, I guess like if you wanted to study music, you would obviously apply to music school and then you would
Yeah.
kind of like specialize from there. But no, you just apply most kids go in for like just liberal arts and then you could study math, you could do and I think you kind of have to qualify after a certain point to get in. But yeah, you can just go in and kind of like spend the first 2 years mucking around and just seeing what you like, really.
I
But
did
it
not
means that
know
you're not
that.
that specialized. Yeah, it's weird. So like what I did a master's in Scotland. That's why I moved over here like a long time ago. And it was so intimidating to be around the kids who'd gone through the British education system because they were super specialized. Like they knew exactly what they were talking about. They just spent like 4 years completely focusing on that one subject where I was like, oh, I took women's studies and a film class and like, you had to do like biology and all this stuff. So it's like you're kind of well versed in lots of things. Not well versed. You're like a master of none, basically. But you're just like,
Yeah.
yeah, you can calculate 15% of it. Even if you're like an English major, you can like calculate a 15% hit pretty easily, but like you don't know the history of like postmodernism. It's weird. It's like, yeah, it's a funny way to do it, but it's good in a way. It means you learn about lots of different things, but you just don't know
Yeah.
that much about your subject.
Yeah. Because I think I prefer that because I always say any of the younger kids around me who are asking me about university. And I always say, look, I think if you're going to go to uni, you should spend those 3 years studying a subject that you enjoy. you don't have to be forced to specialize in one particular thing at 18, because you're still learning about yourself. And, it's not over. Just because you graduate in, I don't know, a science, doesn't mean you're stuck studying or working in the science field.
Yeah, because it's a huge decision. I mean, like as you were saying, like 18 or 17, it's like you're really young.
Oh,
And
baby.
yeah, I kind of knew I wanted to do English. Like I was lucky, like I kind of knew early on. But like most people are just kind of fannying around really. And I think you need a bit of fannying time. Like you need like 2 years of just figuring things out. And yeah, I mean, in France, they do it really early. They do it when they're like 14, I think. So they get kind of
God.
like pushed into these like different schools. And like, so that like you're going to work in kind of like food science from the time you're like 14. Like I mean, that's kind of an exaggeration, but it's crazy. And I'm like, I mean, I guess it's nice. You kind of know what the rest of your life is going to look like, but it seems weird to specialize like before you've like fully gone through like puberty. It's really odd.
And so it's like going back to your bad poetry when you're like 15, and then you're being forced to make life decisions at 14 and 15 when you can't even write a good poem. It just seems a bit.
I mean, I don't think I could do like long division when I was 14 still. Like I
No!
just can't. It's really odd. Oh, but luckily I think, yeah. Oh, sorry.
No, I was going to ask you, is it easy, or was it easier to call yourself, no, is it easier to call yourself a poet in comparison to calling yourself a writer?
Maybe I'm just more used to it. I mean, even poet it feels really pretentious, to be honest. Like, if you're like, I'm a poet, like, it feels really silly.
It feels
like,
quite ethereal, like you're floating around campuses
yeah.
and just like.
Yeah, there's like a lot of baggage that goes with that. I think of myself as someone who wrote poetry. I don't really write poetry so much anymore. So for the past few years, I've just kind of been focusing on the fiction side of things. But yeah, probably that was just for most of my experiences. But I think the next, I think I'll continue with fiction for a while because I really love doing it. So yeah, that's where my focus is now. But I don't know. Do you like, you must call yourself a writer? Like that's.
Yeah, it didn't come easy though. It took a while to say, no, I'm not a lawyer and I'm a writer. It took a long time for me to get comfortable saying that. I suppose because you said calling yourself a poet sounded a bit pretentious. I think calling myself a writer sounded a bit, well, like, who am I? Oh, I'm a writer. It's like, oh, like, who are you? I thought you was a lawyer. And I thought, it didn't even feel comfortable coming out of my mouth. Like it took a while for me to get there.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I mean, like I still kind of struggle because, to be honest, like I'm still working at my day job for the time being, just because I've got kids and I don't know. I think that sense of stability is like quite nice. So when I go through like airport security and stuff, and you have to write down your occupation, I'm just like what do I write? Like writing writer seems completely, or even, I mean, poet would be like the most ridiculous, but then writer just feel, I'm like, have I earned this yet? I don't know. So I think I've done it a couple of times, and you always feel like they're going to haul you up and be like, you're not a writer. But yeah, it's not happened yet. So
I'm trying to think what I wrote last year on my immigration form to Grenada, because I was still writing lawyer for since I published, since The Jigsaw Man was published, so from 2021, I was still writing lawyer on the immigration form. And I was like, I wonder if I wrote writer last year. But I'm not sure, because I still would have I think I'll be okay saying it, but then writing it on an official document, it's probably still felt a bit weird.
Yeah, totally. I don't know. I mean, I wonder, maybe you just have to, I mean, you've published a few books, so I mean, you're kind of at that point, but maybe if you get into like kind of 3-4 book territory, then you just feel like super, I don't know, suddenly it becomes official. You get the official writer stamp. Or I guess people always talk about it like if your main income source is from writing, but then should it be tied to money? I don't know. I mean, I guess it's just how you feel in yourself.
I think you know what you're saying about getting that official stamp. I think if someone had handed me a certificate, so like when I got admitted to the law So if they'd handed me a certificate saying you are now officially a writer, and I'm not talking about my MA certificate, I mean like I don't know, maybe one from my agents or my publisher.
Yeah.
And I would have thought, yes, now I have official documentation. Even though your book
Oh, I
is
think
documentation, it's proof. I don't know, it's a weird thing.
I think that's a really good idea. I think that like when you get that box, I just got my box of finished copies yesterday from my UK publisher. And I think that they should just put a little like Word document, laminate it, just like with like a little
Yes.
seal, like you're officially a writer. I think everyone would just like imposter syndrome would go out the window. Would be like, no, I've got my little laminated document, and that's it. It's done. So yeah, it just take the pressure off you. You didn't have to decide. It'd be like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Did it surprise you that you would still be dealing with imposter syndrome, even though you've written the book, you've got the agent, you've got the deal, your book is going to be out there, and not even in the UK, it's going to be out in the States. Does that imposter syndrome still think, yeah, does it just feel like, why? I'm a grown woman. Why am I dealing with
Yeah.
this?
Oh yeah. I mean, I guess like, I mean, does anyone not have it? I don't know. Yeah, completely. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if that ever really goes away because like you think that you get the agent and that's the big step, and then your book sells and that's the next big step, and it's all feels really nice. But I think you do just have that thing where you're like, oh, they're going to take it away, or it's going to disappear. Like, yeah, completely. I think that, yeah, I just wonder if that ever goes away for anybody. Probably some people don't have it, but I wonder about those people.
No, I think a lot of writers, even from speaking to writers on this podcast and outside of it, I feel like a lot of writers feel like they're on a bit of shaky ground, like it could all just disappear in a heartbeat, because let's say you're only as good as your last book, so you're constantly starting again.
Yeah, I mean, I think that sadly that's kind of true. Like I mean, I don't know. People talk about the heyday. So I worked in publishing like years ago, a really long time ago, just for a few years. I worked like on the foreign rights side of things, and it was really great. And I do think that there is maybe more of a kind of more patience for like developing writers then. And I think maybe there's like more of a conversation about that now in publishing where it's like, well, the person's first book doesn't do that well. We've invested in them as a writer and we'll help them get out their second book and help them find their audience and, their readership. And I wonder if there is a certain amount of pressure now just to have that big hit right out of the gate. And if you don't have that, then you're like, then like your chances of like having a second chance are like so diminished. And I don't know if that's actually true, like, or if it's something that I just picked up somewhere and like inflated in my head. And I don't know. What do you think?
I think it's I think it's a combination of things. It's stuff you hear, especially like on social media from other writers and people who, they've had the bells and whistles with their first book and then the second book has just come out and it's barely been a party popper. So I think when you hear those stories, it does filter through.
Yeah. I mean, I wonder, because like I remember at the publishing house I worked at, I mean, I was really bad at predicting the ones that were going to do well. Like most of the books that I loved the most barely made a peep when they got published. And I was like, what's going on? These are great, but like really great books, really original and funny. And it was just like the direction the wind was blowing that day. Like it just felt like it was total luck that they didn't, and I didn't see their marketing budget, so I don't know. But then a lot of those people didn't publish a second book. And I don't know if it's just because they were so disappointed by the way their first book had gone, that they were just kind of like, oh, I can't bear to like go through this again. Or if maybe they weren't, I don't know, couldn't find the right publisher or I don't know what happens. But yeah.
There's so many different factors, because it could be that, if your first book, you had the right editor, you had the right copy editor, the right, your team had come together perfectly. And then you're working on your second book and maybe your editor leaves and moves, because everyone moves around in publishing. So they move to another publisher, your publicity person leaves, it goes someone else. So it's a complete change. And then you maybe your new editor is not as infused with your book because they didn't choose you. They've kind of just you've just been passed on to them. So there's so many different you probably turn yourself mad.
I know, trying to kind of like find the right formula. Yeah, no, you're probably, I didn't realize that until, so I was really like, I was overly confident when I entered into this whole process because I had worked in publishing before. And I was like, oh, I know the game. Like, I get it. And I really felt like a total insider. And like, not only had it been a really long time since I worked in publishing, but it's just like so different from the writer side of things. And there's like so many things where I was just like, oh God, I hadn't realized. And one of those things was like how important it is that the people who are working on your book be like genuinely really enthusiastic about it and really love it. It makes all the difference. Like, and I didn't even, I knew like working in publishing that people, I mean, especially at the time, we're pretty underpaid. You know, most of the staff is pretty underpaid. They're really overworked and they really are in it for the love of it. Like it's very much like, yeah, they're doing it because they love books and because they care about the books that they're publishing. So I just kind of assumed that like they've made this investment in a book and no matter who kind of takes that book on within the company, they'll like really want to see the best for it, which I think is kind of still true. But whether or not they genuinely really love the book and feel like the book is their baby, that feels like everything. Like if you don't have that, that's tough.
Yeah, it's weird and it can do your head, and you really need to have like good people around you, like in terms of your friends and family to keep you grounded, and also friends who are actually in like other writers and are going through it to give you the reality check. So you can turn yourself mad and just walk away from it all.
Yeah, I think that's true. I think it's also nice to have friends who like aren't in the business as well, because everything that you tell them sounds really exciting to them. Like even if it's bad, they're like, wow, that's so glamorous. And you're like, oh, not really. But like, it's really cool. It's like, so most of my friends aren't writers. Like I do have a couple of friends, like my partner's a writer and I have a couple of friends who are writers, but for the most part, like they work in like renewables or they're teachers or, you know, whatever, they kind of do a range of things. And so it's really funny to describe it. Like you'll just kind of get so like really down the rabbit hole of being like upset over like something that you didn't get, or I don't know, whatever. Like there's a million things that you can always like find to kind of like take the wind out of your sails, and they just kind of look at you like, this has no real world bearing. This is just like, this doesn't, I don't know what you're talking about. Like,
it's so true. I was telling I think I was talking to my dad and I was telling him something that had happened to me with publishing, and he was just looking at me on the screen like, and he literally said to me, is that a good thing? And I'm like, yes, it's a good thing. But it's got no bearing on his life. He's not part of it. And I think, and as he said, I think sometimes you do need that, people who are not in the industry to give you like, actually maybe it's just no, it's not that
it's just is what it is. Yeah, it's like, so
yeah, it is what it is.
Like the world isn't gonna end if you don't get like whatever on whatever book club. I mean, like obviously it's, and I think that's it. It's like, because like the debut novelist experience forever is so kind of roller coastery. It's like just the good news feels incredibly good, and like the bad news or lack of news feels so bad, and you're just kind of like going up and down all the time. And it is just really good to have people like to kind of pull yourself out of it. I think with social media as well, like you're always just kind of like, there's an endless number of things you can check and an endless number of ways to kind of feel bad if you're like really want to feel bad about something. And then to kind of just like go out and like just talk to people who've worked in a hospital all day, or, you know, they're just like, their priorities are just completely elsewhere. And you're like, oh yeah, like this is really nice. And that's why like having kids is good. Like, for that too. I think I've got 2 kids. I've got a son who's 5 and a daughter who's 8. And when they found out I was publishing a book, my son was just like, all right, where is it? And I was like, oh no, it's not been published yet. And he just looked at me and walked away. He was just like, I don't want to hear about this.
My godson did that with the first one. He would have been, hold on, he's 11. Is he 11 now? Yeah, he's 11 now. So he must have been about 6 years old. And no, when we got the deal, so maybe he was 5. And I told him, Auntie's got a book deal. She's going to write a book. And then he went out of his mum, and she called me, and he goes, he's walking around looking for your book. And she's like, no, it's not. It's not done yet. It's going to be 2 years. And it's like, what do you mean? Because in their head, well, you said Auntie's written a book. So
where is it?
Where is it?
Yeah. Oh, completely. I mean, it's really funny. Like my son after that, like decided, he was like, right, well, if your book isn't coming out for like more time, like half my lifetime that I've been like alive so far, it's like I'm gonna have to wait another half lifetime. He decided he was gonna write it. So he like folded a bunch of A4 bits of paper in half and then made my partner write the book actually, but he just did the illustrations. And then he made us go to the library to kind of ask them to kind of put it on their shelves. Aww. Which was like, they were really nice about it. I was a bit like, oh, does this feel kind of obnoxious? I was like these busy librarians, but they were super, super sweet. And they were like, oh, wow, we've heard about this book. This book's meant to be amazing.
Oh, that's so
and
sweet.
Like, oh, we'll put it up on our shelf. Yeah, it was really nice actually. And he was like, but he was just kind of like, oh, that's his due. He was like, oh yeah, cool. Like, yeah, maybe I'll sign it for you. And just like kind of spread it out of the library. Just a very, very confident little guy.
I think that's great. He won't forget that though. Yeah, I was in the library. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was a prodigy. Everyone knew my name.
Well, it's really funny because like not that long after, because we live literally, it's a lovely library and the librarians are great. And we're there a lot just because like I've got kids and it's a good place to go on a rainy day. And my friend was like, oh, you should totally tell them that you're publishing a novel. Like, they'd love to hear that. Like, oh man, local author would be so great. And I was like, cool. I was like, yeah, you think so? She's like, yeah, definitely. So I like walked up to the librarian. I was like, oh, I've actually written a book. And she's like, oh, have you? I'm like, no, but it's like a book. It's like coming out with a publisher. And she was like, oh, okay. She's like, well, you can put a request in for it through our online system. I was like, oh no, it's my book. And we just went around in circles for ages. And I realized that she knew what I was saying, but she was basically like, yeah, if you want your book like stocked on our shelves, you can put a request through the central library system. Like, just not impressed at all. No, like I was like, oh yeah, it's good. It keeps you humble. You're just like,
oh, they do that. She probably gets like maybe like 10 writers a day. I'm a writer.
I know.
Do you have my book?
Like, well, exactly. I think especially living in Edinburgh, which is like a really great city. They've got like millions of independent bookshops, like, and they've got like the big festival. It's like a very literary city, and there's like lots of writers who live here. So it really is just like sewing a cat and you'll hit a writer. Like, there's just no, like, it's just not impressive I mean, yeah, everyone's just like, oh yeah, get in line. Like,
yeah, we got loads.
Like
local writer, you special. We got loads of local writers.
Yeah, there's like Tim across the street and Jimmy down, it's just like, yeah.
I think you feel like you want them because you are local and you feel like you have ownership over the library or your local bookshop. You do want them to like bring out the marching band and be like, oh my God, you're here. Yeah. And it doesn't happen. They're like, oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I know. I completely thought I would get, I mean, I realized like not everyone in life is like my mom, who's like really proud of me and like really excited for me and stuff. But you do think you'll get a little bit of that treatment. And it's weird. Like you do, but just like not from the people you expect. Like at work. So I still work at my reception job. And like, I have to say probably a lot of the people I work with aren't like, I wouldn't say they're not big readers, but they're probably maybe not big readers of like the kind of book that I've written. And that's not to say they won't like it, but it's probably just like not the kind of thing they'd necessarily like, pick up off the shelf. But they are so excited. It's so nice. Like they're just like, oh my gosh, we'll have like a work launch. You can have like your book launch, and then we'll have like
that's so sweet
for everybody. Yeah, and they're like checking like my Amazon rankings, and just like everyone's like really, really psyched. And I really didn't expect that. And then, but like local library, they're like, meh. Anyway, so yeah, it's funny to see like what reaction you get from people because it's just never the one you expect.
but you need to have that excitement and that buzz around you, because it makes it makes you feel that all of that hard work, literally all that sweat and tears that you put into writing this book, is worth it, because there are a group of people who are excited.
I think so. Like, it's definitely been one of the nicest parts of the whole process, because like it's I'm maybe like in the minority in that, like, it was really nice seeing the finished copies of the books, like the American edition and the UK edition, and they're really beautiful, and like the covers are beautiful. Like, they did such a nice job with them, so I don't want to do down the actual like physical copy. But it didn't kind of like make me cry, like it didn't. I wasn't like doing the kind of unboxing videos where I was like, oh, and I don't know why. I was just like, yeah, but it's actually the stuff that I do find really like lovely and touching and makes it all feel really worthwhile is like people you haven't seen in years kind of getting in touch, being like, I saw your book in the bookshop. And it's not that the book's in the bookshop, it's just that like it's kind of like reestablished that connection with that person. And I think that's really nice. And it's nice to think that they're excited for you. And it's like, people from high school or old teachers or whoever. And like, it's nice.
And they will find you. And oh God, I sound like, what's his name? Liam Neeson in Taken, like, I will find you. But no, they will find you. Like your old, same thing happened to me. Like my old school friends who I haven't seen since I left school at 16 were messaging me, like, found me saying, I saw your book and I've got your book and I think it's amazing. And I always started talking about my PE teacher, Mr. Roberts, out of the blue, found me on, I haven't seen him since I was 16, found me on Facebook and said, I saw your book, I'm so proud of you. And I was like, oh, Mr. Roberts.
Oh, that's so nice. That's lovely. I mean, that must make a really, so it's in my book in the acknowledgements. So I thank my creative writing professor from my freshman year of college, but there's a high school teacher who sadly has like passed away. But he was like such a big influence on me. He was my French teacher, so it had nothing to do with writing, but it's like he was the like completely terrifying guy. But he's an amazing teacher and he really put his back into it. It's like teaching high school is tough work, but he just like made it so much fun and he was great. And like, I'm so sad that he's passed away because I'd really love to kind of send it to him and be like, actually, like a huge part of this is because of you. And like, he was the first person who ever showed us, like, even though it was in French, this sounds so fancy, but like, I remember him showing us like literary theory and I'd never seen that before. And it completely blew my mind. And it was just like, I would really, I don't know, find like his family or something and send a copy of the book. I don't know. Anyway, I'll have to do some digging, but it does like that kind of like, oh, you were there at the beginning and that's really nice. And we can celebrate this thing together. I mean, that sounds really self-indulgent, but it's lovely.
No, I don't think
like
it
a really
is.
nice thing.
Yeah, I don't think it's self-indulgent at all because they were there from the beginning and somehow, they're maybe not responsible, but they contributed in some shape or form to that spark. And it's also having that connection with someone from your past. And like, look at me now. So I don't think it's self-indulgent at all.
Well, so it's funny because like my partner and I have been together for a really long time, but we're not married. So we never like had a wedding. And so I don't think we've never had that kind of like, but I don't know, like everyone get together and celebrate me, like moment. And so and like kind of all these people I haven't seen and family and friends. And so the book kind of feels like that a little bit. It feels like kind of like drawing people in, from like all corners. And it's nice. So it's kind of like my very like inexpensive for me wedding, which is nice.
I love that. It's your wedding. Well, that could be like your book launch. Your book launch party will be the wedding.
That's how it feels. Well, I feel like I'm like, oh, it's great because we're having it at an art space around the corner. It's really lovely, but it's not huge. But we've invited loads of people, and actually, people are coming. And I think it's because we didn't have a wedding.
Listeners, it's time for a very short break. If you're enjoying this conversation with Nadine Matheson and want to help keep the podcast going, why not buy me a cup of coffee? Your support goes such a long way in keeping these conversations flowing. Just check out the link in the show notes. When I was Googling you, I always hate saying that because I always feel like I'm stalking someone and I'm not. But when I went online and I was reading about maybe it was the bookseller article, and I was reading about your auction. So your book went into a 4-publisher auction. And I
Yeah.
always think, I don't think anything can prepare you for that. So how did you manage that moment of being in an auction?
Do you know, it was so weird because
Mm.
um my mom was really ill and she's fine now, but she had cancer and she was having a massive
Oh,
operation um in Boston. And I was flying over and it was all really quick. It's like she'd been diagnosed like over the summer. And then it was just like within 2 weeks, it was just super, super quick. And so I flew over kind of like about 3 days after we found out. And I was standing in line for the passport control in Boston Logan Airport when I got the message from my agent saying that there had been an offer. And then the entire auction was happening while I was sitting in the hospital with my mom.
oh
So
no.
it was so weird. But actually, it was kind of like it was a really rough time on some level, well, on lots of levels. And again, she's recovered really well, knock on wood, like she's doing
Mm.
great now. Um, but it was kind of nice because it just gave us all something else to focus on. I
Yeah.
know that's weird. She was just really excited. Like she was yeah, so there's yeah, basically it was just kind of nice news. And it was only nice news. You know, I mean like an auction is almost always going to be mostly nice news. So like, yeah, that was good, but it was weird. It was like there was part of me that kind of wished that it had happened at like a time when I could fully concentrate on it, but looking back on it, it was probably like that was probably the best time for it to happen. So it was yeah, it was really nice. And actually um the I don't know if I'm allowed to say this, but anyway, the first publisher who put in an offer was actually the publisher I ended up going with. And they were like so enthusiastic. So it was really nice. It all felt like it kind of worked the way that it was meant to. And it was, yeah, it was nice. But yeah, it's thrilling, but it was just like, it was like a weird sort of thrill because I was also just like, you know, like changing tubes and stuff at the same time.
Yeah.
So it was odd.
It's an odd, yeah. I mean, God, it's an odd situation in itself, but then to have that going on with your mother, and it's I don't know, it's kind of like an out of body experience anyway. So in a funny way, it's
Yeah.
really good you were away from it because it makes no sense because you can't relate it to anything else in your life. It's not like you're buying a I don't know a painting in auction. It just doesn't make
No.
sense.
Well, I think also it's just so weird because like you know, as I said before, like I'd written poetry for years and it's just a wall, like a tidal wave of rejection. And so like just the idea that like more than one person wants your work is crazy. Like it
Mm,
feels so I don't know. It just feels like, you know, with buses or whatever, like that like
yeah,
seven come along after. Like it feels so weird. Um Yeah, I don't know. That's the only way I can describe it. It feels weird. And it feels really nice because obviously you get letters saying why they like the book and they put together kind of like slideshows for you. I mean, there's just like there's
they
this
put a
whole
lot of
kind of
work
song
into it.
they need to put in so much work and
They
it's so
do.
nice. You're just like you're just kind of basking in the praise and stuff. And then yeah, it's great. And like but it's funny because in the States I didn't have an auction. So it was just one publisher made an offer and they were lovely, but it was not it was so different. You know, it was very much
Mm,
like it wasn't kind of all singing, all dancing, like in the way that the UK auction had been. So I really kind of saw it from both sides. Yeah, which is fine. It's like you can't, you know, I can't. But it's funny also
yeah,
because I used to work in rights. I used to run auctions. So I thought I kind of knew how it would be. I used to run auctions like with foreign
it's
publishers. So I was like, oh, I know how this works. I know how this goes, but I really didn't. I like everything. I was just completely
it's
in the dark.
it's really interesting how you worked in publishing. You know how, like, on a business level, you understand how auctions work. You understand how the whole process works from beginning to end. But when you're on the other side of it, you're just like, I have no idea what's going on. This is just weird. I
No,
don't
and I wonder
know.
if like yeah, I wonder if like I'm like, oh, maybe things have just changed or like everything feels. because it's true, like they always say about publishing, everything was really slowly and it was really, really fast. And like, I have found that it's to be completely true. It just feels like kind of nothing is happening. I think things are happening behind the scenes. You're not aware of them. And then suddenly like everything happens for a couple of days and it's just like boom, 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 boom. And then nothing for like a couple months. And it's really hard to kind of get used to that, like that pace. Like it's just like really odd. And like, I also found that like, I don't know if you've ever had this, but when like, I just didn't realize what was like valuable in publishing. Like, I think things have changed as well since I worked in it. They were like, oh, this, book club or this sales marker or whatever. And I'm like, oh man, I didn't even realize I was supposed to be worried about that. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't realize that was like a thing that people tracked,
It's so true because there were so many things. Just for example, you're saying like book clubs, and even we talk about a lot on the podcast getting into supermarkets, but yeah, just talk about book clubs in general and getting the coveted sticker on your book. You don't realize like how much work goes into getting those things. What a big deal it is, because when you're on the other side as a reader, you just think, oh, you've got a sticker on your book. It's a bit annoying because now I've got to peel it off my book. But you just don't think about it. But when you're on the other side, you're like, oh, this isn't as easy. This isn't just like a tick box thing. This is like a lot of effort has gone into this. There's a lot going on behind the scenes to make this possible.
Oh my God, so much effort. Like I have to say, like hats off to like the editors and publicists and the marketing. I think it's just screaming into the void. I mean, actually a publicist used that phrase, like screaming into the void. I think there's just like so much work goes in for like, things that often don't pay off. And then, you're just kind of like banging down people's doors. And actually my editor has been really good at like, when we talk on the phone, she's really good at being like, okay, I realize that we're talking about this thing. You don't really know what this means. I'll explain it to you. And that's really helped because she's like, oh, I realize that like we're all here like kind of clinking glasses and celebrating. And you're over there and you don't actually know that X, Y, and Z is a really good thing. And I'm like, no, I have no clue. So she's been good at kind of slowing it down and just like walking me through things. Because but it does remind me, like, it's really funny, like when I was pregnant with my daughter, like, like you get those pregnancy apps and it tracks it like week by week. And like it'll tell you how your baby is developing. And I remember getting like texts from this app being like, notifications being like, oh, your daughter has eyelids now. And I'm like, what? My daughter didn't have eyelids before? Like, it's just crazy. And I feel like that with publishing, they're like, oh, this thing happened. And you're like, wait, that wasn't happening before. Like, I don't know. I'm just constantly surprised by like, I was just like, oh,
you assume a lot. You assume things are just done and they just happen. And it doesn't.
I know. No, it doesn't. And it's like, and I think you can be maybe, I don't know. I'm so new to this, so I'd like have no advice. But I think for me, being too involved in the kind of like the ghost in the machine, like the inner workings, drives me up the wall because I think you start to feel like you can control it as a writer, like that you've got some control over like what happens, and you just don't. From my perspective, I think I've just had to kind of like have a back seat and be like, I don't know. I'll just wait until I'll just get the news, as it comes in, and that's fine. Instead of kind of being like, oh, this person got this thing and this person got that thing, and why hasn't my book? Because I think there's like literally no end to that, and it would just make you really unhappy.
Yeah, I think that's the route to madness. If you if you're constantly just watching what's going on, I say next door. with your writer neighbor, you're constantly watching, you're constantly scrolling through social media to see what the local news is. You're constantly in these, I say, Facebook groups and WhatsApp groups. Like, you need distance from it because you can turn yourself mad.
Yeah, and like everyone is probably looking at someone else being like, oh, I didn't get that thing, or they said that person was the voice of a generation and they didn't say that about me. I mean, there's just like, there's like no end to it. So I think like my editor had asked me if I wanted to know about sales and things. And I was kind of like, you know what, I just don't, because I have no idea what it means. Like, I know that there are some writers who are like really good advocates for themselves and they really feel like they need to be. And that's great. And I think that's like, obviously it really works for them. But I just know personally that I, I'll absorb a lot of information, but I have no idea like how to parse it. So I'll like
Yeah, what to do
gather all
with it.
this data and I'll just get really stressed out. And I'm like, I actually don't really know what any of this means in a larger context, or and because so much of it is just like really dependent. It's like you look at numbers and you're just like, oh, but actually this doesn't count library sales or whatever. I don't know. And I know some
I
people
feel
become real experts in that, but I'm just like, I just can't.
Yeah, I feel that way about royalty statements. The royalty statement will turn up and I'll read it and I'm like, I have no idea. I'm like, have I made money? That's all I need. I just need like a bullet point at the top saying you've made some money. Here's your money. When I'm going through it, and I'm like, I don't know what any of this means. I'm just gonna just
I
close the
know.
PDF file.
Well, I used to have to kind of process royalty statements back in the day, and it was easy because most of them were zero. I mean, like people just don't earn out. So I was like, my heart would sink if anyone had made over £0 because it meant that I would have to like figure out how to like.
You got to do math.
Luckily, that almost never happened. I was just like.
I think with the Jigsaw Man, one of the publishers, like every year I got the royalty statement. I'm like, I'm not expecting any money because I just see. Eventually, I'll see the zero. I'm like, okay, it is what it is.
That tells me
And
what
then
I need to know.
that tells me all I need to know. Do I have money? Nope.
Nope. Moving on. It's fine.
It's fine. Let me close it and move on. But Krystelle, talking about moving on, we need to move on to your debut, Idle Grounds. How excited? Well, before I ask you to tell the listeners about Idle Grounds, how excited are you about your debut?
I'm very excited. Yeah, I am really excited. It's been up and down, but yeah, I think I am happy with it because it's very much like the book that I wanted to write, if that makes any sense. It's like,
Yeah.
it's probably not a book for everybody, but and yeah, and I think it was made better by like the editing process and stuff. So I think it's something that like really benefited from like being published in that way with like a team behind it and other eyes on it and things. So yeah, I'm like really happy with the final product. Yeah.
You don't realize until I think your book is finished, like how important it is to have a good editor and an editor who can sometimes talk you down off the ridiculous ledge in which you've planted yourself, in which you're determined to stay. And you're like, no. But when my editor made this comment, that was actually a good thing, and that's invaluable. But you don't see it at the time when you're editing. You're like, what? Why are you asking me these questions? This is the scene I want.
Well, that I think for mine, so my agent and my editors, both in the US and the UK, they were all really great and they were all really different. Like they focused on really different things. But what they were really, really good at was being like, look, where are we? What time is it? Just like really basic kind of narrative markers to kind of, because obviously when you're writing, you're like, well, it's obviously noon. Like in your head, you kind of know, and you need to steer the reader. Otherwise it's like, especially in this book, because it all takes place over one day, it's like the fact that it's almost dinner time is actually really important. So just kind of getting those like real world, like practical things nailed down, that was something that was so helpful. And I just 100% would not have been able to do on my own because I had no objectivity. I was like, it was so in my own head. I was like, oh, it's obvious, but it definitely wasn't. So it was really good.
But you're so right, because even with my book that I'm editing now, and in my head, I know that the major events of the book start on a Monday. And then I know what day they're going to arrest someone. So in my head, I know that. But it wasn't until I'm doing my edits and I'm seeing the comments from my editor, like, it's Tuesday the 19th. I'm like, but isn't it obvious? I'm like, no, it's not obvious. So now I need to make that point obvious.
I mean, it's almost like you almost never read a book where you're like, oh, they mentioned the time too much. You know what I mean? Like, it's always the opposite problem where you're like, oh my God, where the hell are we? Like, what? Like,
what day is it?
Yeah, these kind of footholds are really, really important. And you can only see that from the editing, like as an outsider, I think it's just really hard for writers to do that themselves. So yeah.
Well, Krystelle, would you like to tell the listeners of the conversation about Idle Grounds? And then I'm going to ask you 2 questions following on from that.
Okay. Yeah, so Idle Grounds is a kind of literary fiction, kind of, I don't know, we've been selling it as Northern Gothic, story about a group of young cousins who are at their family's house on a summer's day in 1989 in New England. And like the littlest one amongst them sees something disturbing on the front lawn, something that she can't quite explain, and she panics and she bolts. And the rest of the story is like from the point of view of the kids as they search across their family property and then into the woods for this little girl. And like throughout the book, the parents are out on the deck kind of arguing about old grievances. And there's like this mystery surrounding the grandmother's death years before. And they're kind of pointing fingers, and they always get caught up in this one kind of trauma that keeps resurfacing from their own past. So they're completely ignoring what the kids are up to. And the main drama kind of centers around these kids who are looking for this little girl.
Okay, right. So this is the first question from the book.
Yeah.
Did you face any challenges when writing Idle Grounds?
Yes. So I mean, I wrote it pretty quickly. So it's a very like voice led book, I think, because it's kind of almost narrated by like a Greek chorus of cousins. And the voice kind of presented itself fairly fully formed. And that's sort of what I followed throughout the book. And I wrote it pretty much chronologically. I did face some challenges, especially around the middle of the book, because basically the whole drama of the book centers, like, it's kind of from the point of view of the kids. And there's something that's maybe supernatural, maybe not, kind of stalking them across the family grounds. But it has to be, that balance has to be preserved. Like, is this real? Is it not? And so all of the drama almost has to come like internally from the kids as they interact with each other. And their environment has become kind of glitchy and like deranged. But you're never quite sure as a reader if it's something that is just purely from their imagination or if there is something really kind of like sinister at work. And so I think like trying to create like a dramatic arc around something that's mostly internal was probably the biggest challenge. And that kind of happens around the middle. And so I think, because otherwise, like, you're like, oh, it's just like this thing happened, and then this thing happened, and then this thing happened. And I think it was trying to reorder them so that there felt like there was like rising action. And I'd never really written, you know, I didn't write to like a plan. So it wasn't like a planned novel at all. I mean, about halfway through, I knew how the book would end. But I think it was that, just kind of keeping up the pace, keep like ratcheting up the tension and making sure that the kind of like emotional stakes got raised as well. Again, when it's just kids mucking around in the woods, I think that was like, that kind of, it was more of a structural issue than anything else. So I think that was the big thing we ended up working on. It was probably my biggest challenge, I would say.
Oh. Okay, so if you could spend an afternoon with any of your characters, whom would you choose and why?
That's a really good question. So it's kind of an awkward question because some of the characters are based on real people. So it's in a nice way, actually. Like
in a nice way.
I really loved Owen. So he's a wee boy he's not the youngest in the book, but he's kind of like, he and his sister are sort of the heart and soul of that group. And throughout the book, he carries 2 chicken eggs that he's like taken from the chicken coop. And so he's kind of like maybe the purest soul amongst like all the kids. So I think maybe Owen and his sister Autumn as well. But yeah, Owen. I would say Owen. He's cute.
He's cute. Okay, so Krystelle, the last set of questions. Are you an introvert or extrovert or a hybrid of the 2?
That is a really good question. I think I'm a hybrid, but like a forced hybrid. So I'm probably like, I just remember growing up, it was not, I don't know. It's like you're either an extrovert or it was like a diagnosis of being an introvert. Like it wasn't like, you know, you're just kind of like, so I think I'm an introvert who's like forced to be an extrovert. Like I've kind of made myself be more extroverted over the years. So now kind of grafted on, but like, probably at heart an introvert.
Okay. So what challenge or experience, and I say it can be good or bad, in your life shaped you the most?
Definitely having kids, and just like the lack of time after having kids. But I think it's been kind of good for my writing in a way, because I think when I had lots and lots of time, I probably didn't use it that wisely. And
Mm,
now that I have not very much time at all, it feels like so precious to me, that I feel like I'm just much better at like time management basically. And I feel like there's just more energy when I'm writing than there was before. And also just maybe having kids makes you realize that like you can just kind of tough out almost anything. Like,
yeah.
um, yeah, sleep deprivation and all that stuff. You can kind of just, if you can grit your teeth and make it through. And I think that's probably quite a good lesson for writing.
Okay. So if you could go back to when you were 25 years old and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
Okay, I've been thinking about this. I think my big piece of advice would be to just like concentrate on yourself and to not worry about, yeah, basically you're always competing against yourself. Like that's the best thing you
Yeah.
can do. And like to kind of focus on the work, because like no matter what kind of accolades or what like shiny prizes you get for the work, it like, I don't know, the happiness lasts about 45 minutes. You know what I mean? Like it fades so quickly. And I think that if you learn to love the work for itself, like that you'll always have, and no one can take that away from you. And it will make your work better as well, because you're not writing for like a market. You're not, you really are writing for yourself. And I think like that is really powerful. Just kind of know. Anyway, again, this is advice I would just give to myself now. Like it's not necessarily advice that I've like taken,
No,
but it's
but it's
advice
good
that like in
advice.
my clearer moments, I know that that's true. So yeah, I think that's probably it.
No, but it's such good advice because I said we can spend so much time and lose so much time focusing on other people and competing against them. And really, we should just be looking at just focusing on ourselves and looking at ourselves as our competition. So yeah, this next book is going to be better than the last book I wrote, not the last
Mm-hmm.
book that Tina. I don't know who Tina is, but the last book that Tina
And
wrote.
her damn book club sticker, yeah.
That book club stick. All right. So, Krystelle, here's my new one. What is your non-writing tip for writers? So I always have to
Okay.
qualify by saying it could be drink water. I don't know.
I've heard. Do you know what? I heard you ask this on a recent one. I was like, oh, I'm gonna get a really good answer to this, and I've actually not managed it. I think probably drink water is something that I've learned. Like, actually, here's my advice. I think like when I was younger, I was really good at ignoring all advice. Like, I just didn't take it on board. And like the older I get, the more I realize that like advice is really handy. It just takes me years to kind of like be like, oh, that person who told me that thing when I was 22 was completely right. And I guess you have to just arrive there on your own terms. But I
Yeah.
really wish that I had listened to any advice at all when I was 25, because it would have saved me a lot of heartache. And I don't know if like you can take those shortcuts, but even drink water. Like I just drank like full fat Coke until I was sort of like 28. And like I would have felt so much better if I'd been drinking water instead of all that Coke. So like, yeah, drink water, listen to advice, period. That's probably my advice.
It's a drink water was a good one because and it's so silly. It's kind of like I even prided myself on the fact that I don't drink a lot of water. Like I never used to. And then now I'm like, what was I thinking? Like you need to be hydrated.
You
Hydration is
really
good.
do. You really do need to be hydrated. I feel so like I forget sometimes and I just feel like a salted slug and I feel really tired and then I have a glass of water and it really cuts me up. It's so basic and it's so free. So it's like, yeah, drink water. That is, yeah, that's my advice
Drink
for writers
water.
and non-writers. So like, yeah.
Oh, and finally, Krystelle, where can listeners of the conversation find you online?
So I'm on Instagram. I don't post very much, to be honest. At the moment, I'm just one of those like really obnoxious people who's just putting stuff up about my book. So I really apologize for that. It's
Oh,
just
you don't have to
awful.
apologize.
Um, I just can't think of anything else to put up there. But yeah, so that's it. So if you want to hear updates about my book, it's on Instagram. And I have a website as well, which I'm also not great at updating, but I'm trying to be better at kind of keeping up to date.
Yeah, I need to be better at mine. I keep thinking, oh God, I need to update the events page. I'm like, oh, but
Oh, I've
I don't
got
have
one event.
time.
I know, I'm really excited about the one event I've got up there. And it's like, it'll be a good event. It's next week. I'm at Bard Books in London, and it's like a panel of debuts. It'll be really lovely. But I'm like, I've got to, I've got to populate that page. It feels really sad with just the one event, but I don't have it in me at the moment. So
You'll get there. You'll get there.
yeah, okay, yeah, eventually.
So that just leaves me, Krystelle Bamford, to say thank you so much for being part of the conversation.
Oh, thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much for listening to today's conversation with Nadine Matheson. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. Be sure to tune in every Tuesday for a brand new episode featuring more amazing guests. Don't forget to like, subscribe and leave a review. It really helps the podcast grow. And if you'd like to support the show, you can buy me a cup of coffee or sign up on Patreon. The links are in the show notes. And if you'd love to join the conversation as a guest, feel free to send an email to theconversation@nadinematheson.com. Thanks again for your support, and I'll catch you next time.